is my overtime included when calculating the average weekly wage? And like so many answers, it depends. So the average weekly wage being the common denominator for the whole workers' comp claim, you want that number to be as high as possible, because in turn, your temporary disability benefit numbers will be higher and your permanent partial disability numbers will be higher. So it's to your tremendous benefit, if possible, to include as many wages as you can, which obviously would include overtime. However, the code specifically says, when contemplating average weekly wage, that it is not supposed to include overtime. Like I said, it's not that straightforward. So the courts have litigated this multiple times and heard arguments, and according to our appellate courts and our Supreme Courts, overtime can be included in the average weekly wage. It can be included if it's consistent and mandatory. Consistent and mandatory. So you would have to provide evidence that it wasn't discretionary, whether you would pick up some additional hours. This is something that was part of your job and was mandatory and you had no choice. Also, it is something that needs to be consistent. Now, consistent can be tricky because it doesn't necessarily mean that I worked 45 hours this week and then 50 the next and then 52 the next. Consistent typically means you work 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. That's consistent. That's what you do as part of your regular job. And once again, it's mandatory. If those elements are satisfied, you should be able to include your overtime into your average weekly wage calculation. But it's important to note that if you are able to include overtime, it's not going to be given at time and a half. It's just going to be paid at the straight time. But it is very helpful to increase the average weekly wage and, of course, potentially the value of your case.